What does Kyrsten Sinema want in the reconciliation bill? Everyone's still just so excited to find out, and we thought we had gotten a little bit closer to an answer just a few days ago when it was reported that she wanted to cut $100 billion from the reconciliation bill, specifically targeting climate funds, and specifically some climate funds intended to provide what's called climate resiliency to communities that are going to be more greatly affected by the changing climate. So there, at long last, months into this is what she wants. Or does she? Because within like 48 hours, they pretended that they didn't. A member of her comms team tweeted, "Neither Senator Sinema nor our office have requested or demanded such cuts, nor have we ever heard of any such demands. Once again, the New York Times relies on anonymous sources and gets it flat wrong. Do better." To his credit, he didn't refer to them as the fake news. But anyway, so Cenk, really, we've got a lot of things that we're gonna focus on here, but at least it felt like finally she wanted to cut something. We know that if you cut like $1 trillion, $2 trillion out of this, that's gonna be cut. They're not denying that they wanna make those cuts or that climate funds might get caught in the obstructionist crossfire. They just wanna pretend that they're not specifically calling for this to be cut. But before we really get into evaluating that, do you even believe what they're saying? Why would we believe what she or a member of her comms team at this point are actually saying about any of the specifics of the negotiations?
No, generally with any politician, especially corporate-backed politicians, I don't believe a word they say. In law, there's this thing called a rebuttable presumption. It's not hard to understand, and in the case of politicians, there's a rebuttable presumption that they're lying. It can be rebutted, but my presumption is they're not telling the truth. On the other hand, have I seen the New York Times get stories wrong? Oh yeah, okay, but here's what's important. Somebody's floating this idea. Somebody leaked it to the New York Times full well knowing that what was gonna happen. It could be her team, it could be other Democrats, but somebody put their toe in the water and go, what if we cut $100 billion from climate change? And what they got back was no, right? Certainly from the left and from most Democrats. And that's why you see Sinema's office backpedaling here. Did we put our toe in the water? No, our foot's hurt. That's why we went to Arizona. So again, to me, it doesn't really much matter if it's them or not. The only way that it would, John, is like, am I shocked and chagrined to find out she might not be for fighting climate change?
Former Green Party member.
Yeah, of course I'm not surprised by that. No, hence, since my expectations were already at rock bottom, I agree with you. The fact that she put out any proposal would have been good news, not bad news.
Yeah.
And when you look at the $100 billion they were looking to cut, I thought, yeah, they're gonna cut some of this stuff, John, they are, right? And so, to me, the most damaging of the cuts was the recharging stations.
Yeah, I'm gonna give us a full rundown of some of what whether they're specifically calling for it to be cut, they're calling for a huge chunk of the money to be cut, and this is what's going to be in that. So again, the fact that they're not specifically calling for it is not only needlessly secretive, it's also incredibly cowardly because they do want this to be cut, whether they'll admit to it or not. On the New York Times, maybe one reason they have to use an anonymous source, and just one, is she's a US senator who refuses to let us know anything of what she's advocating for or against. And I think a nice little example of that is she didn't even rebut their reporting, someone on her team did. Even this, when they're finally engaging, she can't be a part of that. Probably because, as we'll soon find out, she was busy on that old dusty trail training for the Boston Marathon. But let's talk about what could end up getting cut. Before we return to the protests against her, the substance of what she is aiming to do seemingly is cutting things like this. So, Democrats are expected to protect a proposed $150 billion clean electricity program, as well as about $300 billion in tax incentives for wind and solar power and electric vehicles. However, they may slash, and when they say this, they mean they have sources that are telling them that this is being planned, up to another $200 billion in other climate programs as part of an effort to win over Sinema and Manchin. And again, you don't have to do that unless that's what they're pushing for, whether they admit to it or not. Now, party leaders have previously promised to safeguard two significant climate change programs costing $450 billion in total. The Clean Electricity Program, which incentivizes electric utilities to use wind, solar, and nuclear, and a general climate package of tax incentives meant to encourage the use of clean energy. But There are several other climate-focused programs that could theoretically be cut in order to shrink the bill. Things like these provisions aimed at helping poor people adapt to the effects of climate change, as well as a $30 billion green bank that would fund construction of community solar panels and electric vehicle charging stations. I assume that's part of what you were referring to earlier.
No, there's another provision that specifically deals with the electric vehicle charging stations. The green bank, I think, is awesome and necessary. It is one of those things that I think might be able to stand on its own and is almost inevitable at some point. I'm being way too hopeful, okay? But guys, there's an important part of this, which is that we've got to get just past like this rolling fascist coup that the Republicans are doing, because if we can get that out of the way, then we have a battle between us and corporate rule, and that's a battle we are definitely going to win in the long run, because the younger voters are so overwhelmingly on our side that they stand almost no chance. So that's why when I see green bank, I think, I know everybody's gonna think it's way too optimistic, but that's gonna happen, right? So now, mind you guys, this is all in the context of if you have to cut something. To the point that John is making, well, wait, if Sinema and Manchin are denying this, or in this case, Sinema specifically, do you agree? If you agree, the other 48 senators agree, the House agrees, we're gonna have a deal right now. So don't tell us you agree when you obviously don't, otherwise we'd have a deal.
Is it too much to ask that in America, you could have someone ask a senator, do you want the green bank for $30 billion or not? But that is too much. You can't get that. She doesn't go on TV, so she's not being asked by those reporters. You go up to her in the streets, she won't answer questions. Whether you're an activist for different groups, Lauren Windsor's trying to talk to her, you do not get to know whether she supports the green bank. At that price, at a smaller price, you don't get to know 4 months. And it might be cut, and it might be because of her, but you don't get to find out if it was because of her. You don't get to find out about any of this. If it ends up being 2.7 trillion or 2.1 trillion or 1.6 trillion, that is a massive difference that will change the lives of tens of millions of Americans in a variety of ways, some of which we can describe, others we can't. And you do not get to find out what effect she had over that. Yeah, that's absurd.
Yeah, I have at least one more thing to say here, which is that I thought the progressives really had a genius idea here, and it's simple. They said, why don't we not cut anything? Now you might think, boy, what a genius idea. Why don't we just give you everything? No. There's of course a second part to it, which is, but we'll make it shorter. Instead of a 10-year window, we'll make the bill a 5-year window. Now that's degrees some, by the way, the number's negotiable. It could be 7 years, etc. Right? Now there's some degree of risk there, because what if 5 years later they say, okay, we're not renewing it, and then you've really cost yourself half of it. My God, you've cost yourself half of all of these proposals.
Well, why is that clever though?
Now that's clever because both the progressives and the conservative Democrats all know that once you have these things, you'll like them. So now get a load of the argument that the Manchins and the Sinemas of the world have to make. Well, we don't agree to that, because if people get this, they'll obviously love it. And so then they'll want another 5 years and then another 10 years, etc. Then maybe in a democracy, you should give them the thing that they love and that you know they love. And by the way, why aren't you doing it in the first place if you know and are positive and are in the middle of negotiations, insisting that it can't be that we give them this stuff because they will love it so much, right? Oh, it's because you have your corporate donors who say, we know Americans will love it and we don't love it, so you are not to serve your voters. And by the way, these have overwhelming majorities support in Arizona and in West Virginia. You are to serve us, your donors, instead. And that's not hyperbole, that is exactly the conversation happening in Washington right now.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we get to sit here and wonder behind closed doors. You have $30 billion for a civilian climate corps. Hey, how about $10 billion to incentivize rural electric cooperatives to switch from coal to wind and solar? I just want to know where Manchin stands on the program that gets them to turn their back on coal. I wonder. He doesn't have any incentive either way.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, John.
Absurd that you can own a coal company and you get to decide, should we use coal or no longer? See, I wonder.
See, that's the one that Manchin is gonna object to the most. Why? Because it takes away his excuses. Because his excuse is, oh, I am worried about coal jobs. But this bill will allow you to keep those jobs and actually have higher paying solar jobs. And the government will finance that transition, that bridge to that. In which case the workers of West Virginia are definitely not hurt. In fact, they are helped. So wait, why does Joe Manchin need an excuse? Because he makes money from coal. So he needs to pretend that he's concerned about jobs. When he can't pretend that anymore, then he's out in the open and he has to admit, which he never will. And there's no reporters that'll ask him at the mainstream media, but he would have to admit, oh, I was just kidding. My voters love it. It would bring more jobs to West Virginia. I'm just greedy. And I don't want to do it because it affects my personal interest, both from my donors and because I own a coal company.
Okay, then I have a controversial idea. I'd like to propose $1 billion. Half of it, 500 million, will go to setting up a massive company to produce solar panels and wind turbines and stuff, and we give it to Joe Manchin. Another 500 million will be set up to buy a massive amount of land in Napa Valley, and we'll give it to Kyrsten Sinema, and she'll get to like stomp on grapes all day long. If it's 1 billion to get the trillions we need, they get all the money they could ever imagine. That's basically what we're doing here. It is about their financial interests. Why not just make it more explicit? Buy him a solar plant and let him rake in the cash and let her live out her dream of being a wine empress.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the bribery is so brazen now. If the government itself did it, it might be more efficient. Obviously, we wouldn't be in favor of that as a principle, right? But by the way, I'm not kidding around. Like, at some point, a progressive is gonna come around who's wealthy and say, you know what, I'm just gonna spend my money. And so, hey, Sinema, Manchin, you guys are servants, right? So instead of serving coal interest and ExxonMobil, et cetera, here, I'll pay you more. Now you serve me.
I wish.
And they would do that deal in a second. And you serve me, and my wishes are the wishes of the American people. Now go to renewable energy.
Yeah.
I swear to you, they would do it in a flat second. And bribery is legal in America. So, hey, if there's wealthy progressives out there, you should go actively, legally bribe them. I'm not kidding.
That would be great.
They say they're for sale. They go and cut checks after every vote. And they're like, $2,800, give me, precious. You have any idea how easily you could buy them? Just do it and be done with it.
I wish.
And by the way, if people complain and go, oh my God, that's outrageous, money in politics. Exactly, good. Then pass an amendment to get money out of politics. Oh, you don't want to? Then shut up.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.